Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Mars has moved into the sign of Leo and is now in mutual reception with the Sun. The Sun is in Scorpio, Mars's sign, while Mars is in Leo, the Sun sign. So between now and the remainder of the year, we have these two planets in a mutual reception, a whole sign square, and Mars is going to slow down, station, and turn retrograde in the Sun sign as well. So we're going to take a look at some of the themes that we're likely to experience or notice within ourselves and around us in the next, say, month and a half. I'll lay out the timeline for you. I'll show you exactly what this mutual reception looks like, what it means. We'll talk about themes related to Mars and the Sun, and I'll give you 5 things to watch for. That's our agenda for today. Before we get into it, as always, remember to like and subscribe. We did some research and found that a lot of people watch the channel but are not yet subscribed. It's free to do so. It helps us grow our business and our community. We really appreciate it. Our next goal is to see if we can get to 80,000 subscribers on the channel by the spring equinox. Of course, that's fall equinox if you're in the southern hemisphere. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on our website, which is nightlightastrology.com. You go over to that page, and I want to show you 2 things. One, go to live talks under the events page. Pluto in Aquarius, my next webinar, AI, Aliens, and New World Orders, will be November 21st in the evening from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll be giving that webinar. If you can't attend live when you purchase the webinar, you'll be given the recording link to watch the recording afterward. The other thing I am promoting, of course, is the upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. Go to the courses page, click on first year course. We start November 16th. It's coming up quickly now. You still have a little bit of time left to register. At the end of today's talk, there's an informational video tagged on to the end so you can learn more about the program if you're interested. While our early bird sale has completed, you can find the need-based tuition option still available if you're someone who would like to take the program, but you are in a difficult position financially, you're fixed limited income, you're on disability, you're a single parent, you're a student, you're only working part-time. We know that people are in all different kinds of situations financially, so we make this available for people who could use a little bit of help. If that is you, please feel free to use that tuition assistance option. You pick within a sliding scale the tuition that works for you per month, and that's how it works. A great election for studying astrology as we begin the program. Pluto will be entering Aquarius, a great sign correlated to the study of celestial topics, including aliens, which is why the webinar is going to be really fun. Anyway, so on that note, let us turn our attention now to the real-time clock, and let's take a look at what is coming. So here we have Mars having entered Leo, and we can see that the Sun is in Scorpio. So this means while the Sun is still in Scorpio for a couple more weeks, that these two planets will be in a mutual reception with one another. So if we just kind of drag this out a little bit, we're going to see that the two planets are in that mutual reception and whole sign square all the way up until about November 22nd. Then the Sun switches into Sagittarius, at which point the two planets trine one another. You can start to see that trine forming. Well, that also is a signal to us in the superior cycle of a planet that when the Sun trines the planet, it is ready to turn direction. So if you'll notice, as the two planets come through the trine, shortly after that, Mars will slow down, and you're going to see that station coming in, and that happens just about 10 days after the trine is made. That's a little secret that you can use to help you identify the periods under which the superior planets, which would be Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, will turn directions, retrograde or direct. It's always right around the time of the whole sign trine, or the degree-based trine between the two planets, the Sun and the superior planet. Anyway, so Sun goes through the trine to Mars in Leo, and then Mars stations and turns retrograde, at which point it will move backward through Leo and then begin to create that additional opposition to Pluto, which is happening in early January. So we can see here's early January, and there's the Mars-Pluto opposition, again, just a few days after the new year. It's a pretty powerful transit. But what we want to pay attention to right now is right here. So early this week on Monday, Mars entered Leo and is now creating that mutual reception with the Sun that lasts about the next 2 weeks until about November 22nd. So between now and then, these two planets have this very powerful form of mutual reception. And then the sun starts trining Mars and Mars turns retrograde in Leo. So I want to explore that mutual reception dynamic today in terms of an underlying theme to watch for over the next 2 weeks. It's like a astrological buffet every day. It's like, well, which transits do you want to talk about? There are always a number of them happening, and different things to pay attention to. And sometimes there'll be a transit that really steals the show. It's like, this is in the spotlight. There's no denying it. It's Mars opposite Pluto, or whatever the case might be. But this is a little bit subtler in the sense that Mars and the sun are not making an exact opposition, and yet the reception they have for one another by being in each other's signs is a very strong form of reception, which means the two planets are connected in a way that's quite powerful right now, even if they're not aspecting. So here are 5 things to watch for. First of all, actually, before I get into this, I almost forgot. I wanted to let's remind ourselves about the sun and Mars a little bit. So sometimes Mars has actually been called the right arm of the sun. And for example, in a kind of monarchical picture or image, you might think of the king as the sun and the king's army as Mars. Or you might think of the instruments and advantages or tools or weapons of power, or the kind of administrative or executive qualities or faculties of a king or a queen. Whatever the royalty is, if it's a leader, Mars might be the power that they have at their disposal to execute and to assert. So the two planets together have a pretty good relationship when it comes to things like willpower, strength, executive decision-making, judgments and action, ambition, and like assertiveness or aggression. And in the ways that those two things work together positively, it's a really nice combination. Where there's a will, there's a way. Ambition and the kind of confidence and determination and perseverance to go and do something. So when these two planets work together, you can also think about the sun as representing that which is ideal and that which we desire. So for example, there's a classic text written by Vettius Valens called the Anthology, and he describes the sun as daimon, which is a word that it has a really interesting history in ancient Greek philosophy. But one of the things that it represents is this idea that there is something like a spirit in each soul when they're born into a body that gives it a series or set of ideal images that are inherent somehow in the soul and its reasons for being here. It's like in the acorn is the blueprint of an oak tree, something that it wants to become. And so the daimon is like a spirit, but it's also like an image of some ideal that we wish to become. And it's multifaceted. It's more like a mandala than a single image. Like, I want to become, just one thing. It's kind of like a total picture and kind of interlocking, overlapping series of images that we seek to become, that we wish to grow into as the arc of a life goes on. Now, that doesn't mean that we will, but there are desires like that live in the soul. And what's interesting is that Mars, within the context of that kind of ideal image that the sun represents, is often about the will and the confidence and the determination and the active power of choice and volition that we use to somehow move toward that goal, that golden image of what we wish we were or what we think we can become or whatever. So when the two planets are in mutual reception, that's why you get ambition and the willpower to go and pursue your ambition. So the two planets are conducive to each other's qualities, you might say, or their agendas are not at odds with each other. This is why, for example, the sun is exalted in the sign of Aries, where Mars is the ruler. So there's an affinity that the two have for each other when it comes to, the early spring sign of Aries is kind of a trajectory of growth and ambition as the light is rising up toward its apex. And both Mars and the sun are sort of very happy in that place, sort of a ambitious place. We also have Mars exalted in the sign of Capricorn, which comes at the winter solstice, where the light is rising up from a lowly, dark place, gradually, steadily climbing the mountain. And Mars is associated with that climb, exalted in Capricorn. And that's a climb where the sun is rising. You see how the sun rising and Mars go together. Now, the dark side of this is, of course, that not every ambition is good. Not every use of the will is kind or constructive or compassionate. We have to, with Mars and the sun, we have to contend with things like vanity, willpower, dominance, aggression, bullying, all sorts of things. On the other side, you can deal with things like fear and inadequacy, like, oh, I'm not good enough. And Mars and the sun can be about that kind of hero's journey to overcome a feeling of not being capable or something like that. There's a lot that Mars and the sun will feel like it has to prove. And it can be also about figuring out the right relationship with power, will, ambition. Because some people will say, well, it's just easier to live in a world where I don't have ambitions because they're inherently selfish. And other people will say, screw off with your puritanical thinking. I'm going to pursue what I want, sort of my way or the highway. And there are extremes. So tempering those extremes is also always a part of the relationship between Mars and the sun. It's like, and I know that not everyone's going to resonate with like a image of kings or whatever, but like, what does the good king or queen do with the power that they have? How do they create? I mean, one of the things that I love about the I Ching is that so many of the texts of the hexagram were meant for political leaders who were meant to guide a state in an ideal sense. Not that the world is ideal, but in an ideal sense, they were supposed to lead a civilization or a society in a way that would be conducive to the wisdom of the Tao. Right? So it's like, what does the executive capacity within a human being who's a leader look like when it's being used for something that is good for more than just the leader themselves? Those are deep questions that the Sun-Mars dynamic always brings up. The knight in shining armor. You have themes of power and arrogance. Like if you think about the Six of Swords in the tarot, let's see if I can bring the image up. Six of Swords in tarot is a good one. Or no, is it? I'm sorry, Six of Wands. My bad. Six of Wands. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to just bring this up on the screen over here. You think about like chivalry, the Knight's Code. Here's the Six of Wands. Riding high on the horse, victory. Is this guy arrogant? Is he like, is there some sense of, yeah, look at me. One of the things that we think about when we think about chivalry and knights is that they serve something other than themselves. They serve the king, or they serve love. They serve the maiden, So there's always some question about how humility and transcendence and sacrifice and service. Remember that Mars is, and I've said this how many times, right? But Mars is connected to the word martyr. And soldiers, knights, are often people who will die for someone or something else. So where does that sense of, not that we are going that far with this, right? But where does that sense of selfless service, sacrifice, serving something beyond my own power, my own self-interest, come into the equation with such a powerful combination of force, strength, ambition, ego? I mean, look, it's a knight in shining armor. They're shining, right? There's the sun. So 5 things to watch for over the next couple of weeks. In a kind of subtle level, this will be appearing. And I've just got focus issues with my camera here. There we go. So one is my will, my way. And I was just alluding to this, but a Mars Sun theme can be about acknowledging and honoring there's something I want, and I have to figure out a way. What is my way of going about achieving or accomplishing the thing that I want? And that's important because critical to the accomplishment of anything in our lives is not just accomplishing it, but figuring out how to accomplish it in a way that is honoring and connected to something authentic in us. Like if you want to become, I don't know, a great astrologer, a key part of how you do that is also to figure out what kind of astrologer you are. You know, a musician, I want to become a great musician. Yeah, but you also have to figure out what makes you a great musician. So when I say my will, my way, of course, the shadow side of all of this would be, you know, how do I get something done regardless of anyone else thinks? How do I bully or bulldoze my way to the results that I want? That's a shadow of Mars Sun. But the other question is, how do I authentically go about becoming, embodying, achieving, or accomplishing something that I want or desire in a way that is not compromising of my integrity or what is, you know, it's like in line with my spirit. A force greater than myself. Mars and the sun can make us realize that, you know, one of the things that I'll never forget my grandfather said, and he was a veteran of the Korean War. And he was not impressed with, I don't know, I'll just say he wasn't impressed with that war in hindsight. You know, as a young man, he was very eager to serve and to be a soldier, and there was a lot of honor and pride in such a position. And I think this is a story that many soldiers have told, not in all places, probably for all times. When he was actually in combat and he saw a friend of his get killed right in front of him, you know, and I'm sure many people out there have family members, or maybe even people listening to this have served and have seen people die. And he just had this recognition that war was a force greater than himself, and that his ambitions to be a soldier and his desire to be a hero were just not that the actual reality of war was a force so much greater than that ambition and personal agenda and sort of image of himself as a soldier. That war sort of subsumed that ambition. And he felt that it was a kind of foolish, youthful ambition that the actual experience of combat sort of wiped right out of him. And then, of course, he actually, you know, he did his service and his duty and everything, and came home and had to deal with, you know, alcoholism, and then getting clean and sober. And I look at that process and I think, yeah, that's the thing, is that most of us try to wield the power. It's very Lord of the Rings, by the way. I can't help but bring in the Lord of the Rings. You try to wield that ring and it will eventually possess you. And that's the thing about Mars and the sun, is that it's like, it's a great, tremendous power. And if you're not careful with it, it will not be something that you can hold or wield. It will possess you, and you can suddenly become a bad guy, you know, even though you don't see yourself that way. And one of the easiest ways to become a bad guy, in my humble opinion, is to be self-righteous, you know, to forget that we're not better than anyone else. Like, there's, you know, it's radical, but like, just imagine that in every situation you pull yourself back from doing or saying things because you keep that mantra alive. I'm not better than this person. I'm not better than anyone else. That kind of humility is crucial for working with Mars and the sun, because if you try to wield Mars and the sun and I get identified with it, it's problematic. And that's number 3, conflation and differentiation. You get conflated with Mars and the sun and the power of Mars and the sun, and you get on that high horse. And then you get knocked off to remember that you are not the power. You are a conduit as a soul, a meeting ground for the gods and the archetypes. It's like, I think it was Wordsworth. James Hillman liked to quote Wordsworth, who said, "We are lived by powers we pretend to understand." So, and Jung said that, you know, when we get conflated with archetypes, I am the knight, I am powerful, I am almighty, I am this or that, I'm strong, I'm the man, you know, I'm the woman, or whatever, however we identify. I'm the this, I'm the that. Then, to that extent, the differentiation will be tremendously painful. We'll become we'll have to go through like a disempowerment and sort of be dispossessed. I don't know if that's even a word. It's painful to have that power like stripped away from us. I was thinking about this a lot recently as I was contemplating this mutual reception and thinking about it in terms of something I heard a bodybuilding coach say. And I thought this was super fascinating. He said that one of the things that bodybuilders have to be very careful of is to live with an incredibly realistic understanding of how your body will look during a contest, like the prep and then the contest. Your body will look that way for literally a couple of days of your life, and that's it. And then you'll refeed your body fat percentage will go up, and you're not going to look, you just can't look that way. And many of the bodybuilders who end up becoming really sick and abusing drugs and all sorts of stuff like that, that's happening because they can't handle the differentiation. Yeah, you've prepped your body into this space for a contest, but then as soon as it's over, you have to let go of that image. It's like Olympian, the Olympians. That's the championship. One of the championships called the Olympia. Think about that. They're gods and goddesses. Human beings cannot look like that for more than like a day. It's amazing the kind of, the prep that goes into it. And it's a very interesting to me arc to follow. And then what I heard this bodybuilding coach say was like people who really have a hard time are those that can't let go of the fact that you cannot look that way. It's not natural to look that way for more than like a day or two. And then your body you have to go through a recovery process. And if you don't have a healthy relationship with a more normal like look and feel to your body, which is still remarkably good for all those bodybuilders, but if you don't, then you will do all sorts of unnatural things that can eventually kill you because you can't let go of that look. Like, wow, that's the temptation of trying to reach Olympus, right? With the physical form. I think that's fascinating. And such temptations exist along every path. I think, for example, of Star Wars, where the temptation that Luke faces as he is developing his skills as a Jedi is to become seduced by the power of those skills. It's the same thing. So think about that, because when we get conflated with things that are very powerful and then we have to differentiate and let go, sometimes there's a kind of like a cliff we fall off from, and it's much better to slowly walk our way back down the hill. What inflates will deflate. Yeah, I mean, here is the big secret. According to the Tao, everything that's full will be emptied and everything that's emptied will be full. And so when tremendous periods of power and power plays and amplifications of themes and images of power and strength and dominance and victory, those things will be there, and inevitably there will be periods of decline, diminishment, deflation. If we don't have a relationship with both sides, the sun and Mars will be about relentlessly grasping at power. And number 5, what does it mean to be empowered? I mean, it looks probably different for different people in different situations, but I would say that at the heart of the sun, because remember, the sun is related to the heart, is the idea that whatever we do with strength and power should be for the benefit of all, that there should be an aura of generosity and of sharing. Whatever good fortune you've come into, that there is an awareness that there should be some giving back, that there should be some way in which the good fortune you come into, you recognize did not simply come from you, but came from forces greater than yourself that you pretend to understand. And so the natural response is to share and to be generous and compassionate, forgiving, just, virtuous, that anyone who comes into contact with power that is lacking those qualities will become dispossessed. They will lose that power, because the way that power seems to situate itself comfortably in any kind of like sustaining rhythm in the cosmos is with places that can hold it. And one of the ways that power is held is by constantly being distributed. Because when you think about it like a reservoir. The heart is like a reservoir, and it feeds an entire ecosystem, and the rain keeps filling it up. Because it feeds out, it gets filled up. Well, there's something like that about like really amazing, powerful people, is that they don't take and try to hold the power. There's something that keeps giving it out, which coincides with the rain that keeps filling it up. So those images are important because the heart is at its best when whatever power and shine and, greatness is, kind of emanating from it is consciously being shared, distributed. So these are important teachings to think about as the sun and Mars are in mutual reception for a couple of weeks. And I personally feel like this is the message I need on election day. You know what I mean? Because the world will keep on going and the results will be the results. But I need this meditation on power and what it looks like from the perspective of these ancient wisdom traditions. I keep that alive in me. That's something I can do. That's a way I can have an impact on this channel, and in the way that we try to share astrology generously and openly with people through need-based offerings. I'm also very glad to announce that our need-based reading service is now open and available. So you can go over to our website, and I'm going to see if I can't just pull this up really quick. Let's see. Here it is. So, okay, hold on. Oh, hold on. I'm having a hard time finding it. Okay, hold on just 1 second. Let me actually just pause this. Okay, sorry. It took me a second there. So I'm going to take you over to nightlightastrology.com. You go under the readings tab and you are going to find our new need-based astrology readings. And I am very excited in that same spirit of generosity to share with you something that you all helped us build through the last couple of Kickstarters. Here under the need-based astrology readings tab, you will find that we have a new staff of readers, some of whom are our course directors, some of whom are seasoned tutors in our classes, and some of whom are wonderful emerging talents from our programs, recent alumni. You will find that there are tiered readings available that allow different pricing and different budget points so that you can have a reading that is going to work with your budget, and a tier of different readers who are all very talented to work with. So I'm very excited to announce the launching of this service. And I wanted to launch it today because it feels like an auspicious day, on a day where there's so much clashing, so much division. This is something that I can put into the world on such a day that I think will give something back and remind us that, wherever we can share and we can see the best in each other and try to do something to help each other, I think that's going to always take us the furthest. So anyway, this is our little thing that we can do to help. So you'll find on the affordable reading astrology tab, under the readings tab, excuse me, that's a mouthful, you'll find the need-based astrology reading service and tiers of pricing and some really amazing people and astrologers from within our programs and our staff that are there to work with you, read your chart, help you understand what's going on in your life at a little deeper level. So please do check that out, book a reading. Thank you to everybody over the past 2 years of the Kickstarter who helped us gradually raise enough money to move into this service. It took a lot of effort and a lot of planning, and we had, to bring in some new staff over the past year. And as that's all happened, we've gotten this service ready to go for all of you. So yeah, you guys helped make it happen. And let's keep the good vibes going at Nightlight. After I sign off, you can learn more about the upcoming program. Come study with us. We also have affordable tuition that we offer through our upcoming program. So hope to see you there, and hope you're having a great day. Bye. Hey, everyone. I'm glad that you're sticking around to hear more about the Year 1 program that's coming up. The program starts on November 16th of this fall, and I am here today to tell you all that the program includes and why I think you really like it if you're thinking about studying astrology. So a few practical details about the course as well. The class begins November 16th, as I mentioned, but it takes place on Saturdays from 12 to about 2 or 3 p.m. Eastern time. So that's 11 to 2 Central. And typically classes are about 2 hours long. Sometimes they run over with Q&A and discussion, but you can always plan for about 2 hours and you won't miss any of the actual lecture content for the day. You may have to duck out a little early if Q&A or discussion is extending. Sometimes it does, which is why we say between 2 and 3 hours, but typically it's around 2. All of the classes are recorded, so if you can't attend live, you are more than welcome to watch the recordings at your own pace and on your own time. You have lifetime access to the recordings, and everything is housed on a student website. I want to actually give you a just a little preview of what that student website looks like. So I am going to open up my own version of Thinkific, which is the platform that we use. So here's are some of my courses. These are all the Nightlight courses I teach. You can see on the page. But I'm going to tune into, let's go to Nightlight 28, which is the section that began in June of 2024. So here you're going to see that we have orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar. Everything that you need to know how to access the course is there, and you'll have a version of this in your own panel that you get set up with when you enroll. And then our lessons are laid out. So lesson 1, we have the video, the audio, the slides, the transcript. We have the Q&A box transcript so you can see what people were saying in the chat box during class. We have flashcards. We have a workbook. We have planet and sign glyph flashcards. We have bonus material, videos that we like from YouTube that we link you to. Say, check this video out, check that video out. They go along with some of the things we talked about in class. So every lesson has material for you to go as far as you want with, but the main thing is the video, audio, slides, transcript, etc. are all listed there so that you can download and watch it on your own time if you can't attend live. Again, the live classes do happen on Saturdays for this cohort, starting November 16th. That is our first day of class. And then going forward, it always meets on Saturdays, and we give you the class schedule to map out. And the breaks that we have, the study sessions that we have, everything's mapped out on the class calendar for you. So those are just a few practical details that, just to kind of start us off with. So I'm going to take you over to the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. And I'm going to share with you some information about the program and sort of walk you through what it includes and what you can expect. So it is an almost year-long program. We typically finish between 10 and 11 months out of the year. It can depend a little bit on some of my teaching and scheduling because sometimes I teach at conferences and it may delay some of our modules by a week or something like that. But it's typically around 10 to 11 months that the program lasts. So we call it our first year program. At Nightlight, we have a program for absolute beginners. You may want to check that out if you are like brand spanking new. That would be 8 to 10 hours of content that's really meant to set you up for the first year course. We sort of assume that if you're coming into the first year program, you already know a little bit about astrology. For example, you have some familiarity with the signs, planets, and houses. Maybe you know what aspects are, but you want to learn more about what they are. But if you are really at the very total entry level space, then try Astrology for Beginners. And when you take that, you could do that right away and then join the first year course in November and you'd be perfectly set up for it. But anyhow, in this program, over the course of about a year, we work through 30 lessons that I lead. And those lessons are all 2 to 3 hours each, including lecture, a little break, and a Q&A portion where we open up for people to come on mic and camera and ask questions and have an interactive discussion about the material for the day. The program is broken into modules that cover a variety of topics in ancient Hellenistic astrology. That is the earliest era of horoscopic astrology. And so if you don't know a lot about the different schools of astrology, Hellenistic astrology is going to be the kind of astrology that you see a lot of astrologers practicing nowadays. It's become more popular in the last 30 years or so. And that is due to the fact that a lot of ancient texts with some of the original techniques of horoscopic astrologers were recently translated into the English language, and it's created this renaissance in terms of the use of ancient approaches to astrology. I have a background in modern psychological, archetypal, and evolutionary astrology. And so, of course, I bring those things to the table. But the course is primarily focused on the excavation of ancient techniques and the spiritual philosophy that ancient astrologers also espoused. The closest thing that I can tell you to what that looks like is, ask this question: do you resonate with the philosophy that you hear me take on my YouTube channel? If so, then you're going to love this course in terms of its philosophical and spiritual approach, because the spiritual approach to astrology that I teach is really at the heart of the program. And that's a big part of my life. I approach astrology from a spiritual standpoint. It doesn't belong to one religion or one particular school of thought, but you will hear me talking about things like the soul, the belief in the transmigration of the soul. You'll hear me talk about the need to be soul-centered in our client approach to counseling in astrology. You'll hear me have an appreciation for psychological dimensions of astrology, but also ancient astrology is really very, very good at developing your predictive capacity. We talk about what kinds of predictions are appropriate, how to make appropriate predictions, how to be the right kind of astrologer for our clients without inducing any fear. So there's a lot of care that goes into the development of this craft. But ancient astrology is really amazing when it comes to honing your predictive abilities. And then what you'll find is in this program, there's also a pretty significant emphasis on the psychological dimensions and client care. Anyhow, we go into the roots of ancient Hellenistic astrology and its techniques in this program, and the 30 classes are broken into modules. We work through the history and philosophy. We work through planets, houses, signs, aspects, essential and accidental dignities. And then we get into approaches to the delineation of natal charts. And then at the end of the program, almost a third of the program is dedicated to live client readings, where you're going to see me meet with a person and apply what we've been studying for an hour-long reading. We take a break, we come back, and then we workshop. How did I do that? Why did I make these choices? How did I handle this or that came up in the reading? And it becomes easily the favorite part for most students of the entire program, because by that point, you've got so much theory that you're really ready to see it put into action. We alternate those live client practice sessions with hands-on practice, where students get to bring chart questions into class that we work on. And that's also something that most people really love. A lot of people will look at the curriculum and say, well, I already know planets, houses, and signs and aspects and dignities. But not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology, because the approach that ancient astrologers had to these topics is vastly different from the approach that modern astrologers take. So you will be, in a sense, relearning basic things in a brand new way. And I think a much more enriching, deep, and philosophically clear way. It's really nice to know the why behind things. This program and Hellenistic astrology in general is very good at helping you understand the why behind everything that we do. Also, it's really important to participate when you study astrology in a living lineage. So one of the reasons I don't let people jump ahead to my second or third year programs is because I want you to be entrained to a lineage, a particular way of doing things that comes from an astrologer who has a very living, busy, active practice and who has had teachers themselves. I think that's important for astrological learning. That's the model that my own learning take, and so that's what I really want students to take away from my programs. Anyhow, so all of that aside, the second year program focuses, after we build our understanding of the basic delineation techniques of birth charts, in year 2, we move into timing techniques, which is all about when the karma of a birth chart is going to be active and expressing itself throughout the course of a lifetime. That's year 2. Year 3 focuses on the development of counseling skills at a much deeper level. And then we also have a 1-year horary program, which is about the development of a very specific predictive technique that can be a really amazing tool to add to your kit. That is 4 years worth of training programs that we have. However, I want to mention that many people take our classes just for the sake, purely for the sake of their own personal growth. Taking these programs is very much like being taught how to utilize a technology that for yourself will be deeply useful for the rest of your life, and maybe for close friends or family members around you. Many people come through our programs taking that benefit away and will study through all 4 years of our programs with no intention of being professional. This is their hobby. This is a spiritual tool that will have it will pay dividends over a long period of time. However, many people without the intention to practice come into our courses and discover that they're actually good at it and may end up reading for other people part-time. And then there are students who are deeply, intensely motivated to practice for other people. And it is not that our programs really make those people successful. Our programs contribute to your development, but it really is that some people have a calling to practice professionally. And these programs are designed to give you all the tools you need to develop that confidence and to develop a really coherent set of tools and to entrain yourself to a lineage, which you can also develop your own unique style out of. So those are some of the, the kinds of people that take our programs, you might say. So the 30 classes on the year are then broken into modules. And in between modules, we have 2 course directors who are present in all of the classes, and they lead breakout tutoring sessions where you can come in and review or ask questions about the module that we've just completed, which is usually anywhere between 2 and 3 classes each. So those breakout study sessions led by our tutors are outside of the 30 classes and very useful. A lot of people like to attend those because they also offer opportunity for community and just lively conversation. We also have 12 online webinar classes led by guest teachers that we host throughout the year. Those are free, and if you can't make them live, they're all uploaded into your student folder. You also have an interactive group forum discussion staffed with tutors who typically respond to questions that you have about the material within 24 hours. So if you can't attend a tutoring session or you just have a random question on a Tuesday night, you can pop it in there and you'll get an answer. We also have a ton of bonus material, optional quizzes, flashcards, tons of supplemental material that is there to help people go as deeply as they want. We have a reading list that is expansive. And that reading list, we don't expect anyone to accomplish. It's more so a resource that we give you saying, here, if you want to know all the things I've read, if you want to know all the things that I love, if you want to know all the things I recommend, here's a master list of everything for each lesson. You could go, PhD level if you wanted to and read thousands and thousands of pages. Or you might find that there's just one extra book that looks really interesting and you want to pick it up. But we pride ourselves on making sure you have a ton of resources. You have lifetime access to all the class recordings. You can email our staff or me throughout the year with questions, and my staff will also defer to me in the case that they don't know the answer to a question. So that is what the program includes. It starts November 16th. If you would like to join, at the bottom between now and October 15th, our early bird payments are available. So that saves you some money off the cost of the course. There is a 12-month installment plan that is cheaper than our normal plan, a one-time payment that's significantly cheaper than our normal one-time payment. So you get these little sales that we do until October 15th. We also have need-based tuition assistance. So if you are someone who would like to take this program, but you are on a fixed or tight budget, we have an application there. Click apply now. Just tell us what you need. We give a range. We say between this dollar amount and this dollar amount, what can you spend? And then we set you up with a plan for that tuition number per month. And that is available for anyone. We ask people to apply early because those spots are limited, but we are really accommodating. We try to make sure that nobody's priced out of a spiritual education. Like, this topic should be very accessible for people because I believe that the divine is speaking through the sky, and like anyone should have access to understanding what it's saying, right? So anyway, that is a bit about the program. I hope that this has been useful for you. If there are any questions you have, you can look over the curriculum content on the page, on the year 1 page. There's more information there. Check out the FAQ section for more questions. Email us info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see some of you in class soon. I think this is going to be a really powerful program because it's also starting right as Pluto is moving into Aquarius. And within the year, we're going to have a Uranus-Pluto trine with Uranus in Gemini. These airy signatures and the connection between Uranus and Pluto make for a very powerful year to advance our understanding of astrology. So it's a great election year for studying. And I hope to see some of you in class soon.